On Tuesday, 8 January 1941, Major General Krylov drove out in a car to the 3rd sector to inspect the location of the combat units. He visited the headquarters of the 79th Rifle Brigade and were already moving along a country road towards us. Suddenly, the general stopped the car. He wanted to look from a small hill at the picturesque view of the Kamyshlovsky ravine, which at the end of December was the site of stubborn battles. A minute later, a mine exploded behind him, then the second from the side, the third in front. General received 3 wounds from mine shrapnel. He was urgently taken to the hospital in the same car, where he underwent several operations. Fortunately, the Major General survived and returned to duty. The fact is that the Kamyshlovsky ravine, along the bottom of which a winding stream flowed, was now in neutral territory. Its 2 slopes, a gentler northern one and a steep wooded southern one, formed a deep ravine between them. The ridge of the southern slope in some places went up to a height of more than 300 meters above the sea level. This ridge was occupied by our forces. On the northern slope were units of the 50th Brandenburg Infantry Division of the Germans. They could fire at a short distance from mortars and machine guns at the bottom of the ravine and its southern slope, and our positions on the ridge. We naturally answered them. So, for our outrageous attack on the Major General, the Fritzes received from us many hot gifts. The beautiful mountain landscape, which greatly interested the General, complemented the bridge. It was called Kamyshlovsky Bridge and connected 2 high slopes of this ravine. It was built in ancient Tsarist time, when a railway line was stretched from Moscow to Sevastopol and passenger trains began to run along it. During the defense of the city, neither the Russians nor the Germans needed this bridge, and it was blown up. Twisted, broken metal structures were now in disarray above the grey concrete pillars. The central part of the rather long bridge collapsed downward. Only 2 or 3 spans on the other side survived. The magnificent engineering structure has fallen into ruins, testifying the merciless and senseless power of war. Sometimes I looked at him through binoculars. It's clear that the destroyed bridge represented a military advantageous position. He dominated the area. From one of its sides, I will call it northern, at a distance of 600–800 meters, the forward position and rear of our troops were clearly visible. On the other, respectively, southern, German, among its iron carcass raised over the ravine, one could well find a place suitable for a sniper ambush. I thought about it. My attachments to the Crimean forest prevented me from making a quick decision. I was used to trees, and the pile of twisted metal still had to be studied and mastered. In addition, the bridge was in the area of responsibility of the 79th Brigade, 4 kilometers northwest of our regiment. In this case, it's interesting that professional snipers think in the same way. On that day in the morning, Fyodor Sidych and I conducted a lesson in our platoon with SVT-40 rifle. As you know, Tokarev's self-loading rifle has a rather complex device. Even an incomplete disassembly of it requires good skills, accuracy, and I would even say caution. We organized the lesson in such a way that I told the soldiers about the details that make up the weapon. Sergeant Sidych slowly showed how it was disassembled. The number of parts, large, small, very small, laid out on the table gradually increased. At the same time, the anxiety of our soldiers grew. It was felt that the lesson would not be easy. I didn't want to be distracted from the lesson at all, but the orderly who appeared in the dugout conveyed the order of Major Motasevich. The platoon commander should immediately arrive at the regiment command post. There, besides the major, was another officer of medium height and a strong build, about 38 years old, dressed in a black naval uniform with the 4 gold stripes on the sleeves. Motasevich introduced me to him. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, platoon commander of the 2nd company of the 1st battalion. Then him to me, the commander of the 79th Naval Rifle Brigade, Colonel Alexei Stepanovich Potapov. People say that you, Lyudmila, are the best sniper at the Chapayevsk division. I saw your photo on the divisional honor board. She was placed there recently, Comrade Colonel. I have a serious matter for you. It seems that an excellent German shooter has appeared in our sector of defense. In 2 days, 5 were killed. 2 of them were commanders, including the battalion commander. All hits are to the head. Has his ambush been detected? I asked. We believe it hits from a broken railway bridge. From the bridge? I couldn't resist exclamation. So you know this place? Potapov was surprised. Not that close, but I thought about him. So what do you think about this position? It's a very advantageous position, I said, especially if you find a place on the surviving span and hide among the broken metal structures. You can shoot aiming at a distance of 600 to 800 meters. The front line and the near rear of the German 50th Infantry Division are at a glance. From the other side, your brigade's rear are probably just as clearly visible, so he shot for fun. Can you stop these exercises? I can, I said firmly. Besides, I need an observer sniper. Best of all is Sergeant Fedor Sedykh, my constant and experienced partner. Who will be my opponent we didn't begin to guess. After all, the location of only one ambush by a German is known, and even then it's inaccurate. We don't know how many such prepared positions he has. Fedor and I, loaded with sniper equipment with duffel bags on our backs, with Mosin rifles on our shoulders, in great coats and caps with ear flaps, settled in the back seat of the car and drove to the location of the 79th Marine Rifle Brigade. At a first glance, it became clear to me that it was impossible to set up a sniper ambush at its southern end, since it was badly damaged by the explosion. Only one span of the bridge survived here, and even then not completely. A completely different picture was on the enemy side, at the northern end of the bridge. 3 spans have survived there. They stood quite firmly, all through they were surrounded by bent metal beams. Hiding in this iron wooden chaos was easy. I had no doubt that the fascist was shooting from there, but will he come back to a position where he has already twice successfully hunted? The sappers of the 79th Brigade helped Fedor and I set up an ambush. At night, they dug a trench up to 80 centimeters deep and up to 10 meters long in front of the first line of defense of the 3rd Battalion. This path led into a deep and large trench. Above it, we installed a sliding metal frame, pelted in with branches and snow. The trench was also camouflaged so that from above it seemed like an ordinary ditch. In addition, we have prepared a doll that's in mannequin on a stick, dressed up in an overcoat and a helmet, with a rifle tied to his back for added credibility. For 2 days I studied the blown up bridge with binoculars. There were only 2 places that were ideal for accommodating a man with a rifle. Fedor and I took turns watching them, and especially carefully in the pre-dawn hours. The malicious German didn't appear. I was already beginning to fear if ours had finished him off somewhere in the forest, where he went in search of a new prey. Sedykh answered me in the spirit that the fascists, being the extremely calculating people, simply cannot refuse the bridge with such a wonderful view. The shooter will appear. It's important to notice it in time. Suddenly, the sergeant touched my shoulder with his finger and then pointed to the bridge. I quickly took the binoculars out of the case hanging on my chest and held them to my eyes. The dark figure of a man making his way through the twisted beams appeared against the background of the brightening sky and immediately disappeared. Now we need to give him the opportunity to look around, set up the gun, load it, find familiar landmarks in the space where he managed to get used to it earlier. But the German sniper is unlikely to detect our ambush. We did a great job following absolutely all the rules of the disguise taught at the Kiev School of Snipers. Half an hour passed. Friday, 23rd January 1942 began as a very quiet day. Cannons, mortars, machine guns were silent. bombers, attack aircraft, fighters didn't rise into the sky. The war seemed to be lurking. In these minutes and hours, it seemed that the murder was over, the peaceful life was returning, and our craft would no longer be in the demand. Unfortunately, it was dangerous to believe so far. Listening to the unusual silence, I put 2 fingers to my lips and whistled. Sedikh responded with the same short whistle. I didn't take my eyes off the bridge and knew that Fyodor, hiding in the trench, had already dragged the doll to the neutral lane. From a distance, it seemed as if a Soviet sentinel had left the trench and was examining the area in front of him. Will a German fall for the old trick used on the fronts of the First World War? The shot from the bridge sounded muffled, as if someone had hit a wooden plank with an iron stick. A shot flashed exactly where I expected. Honestly, I would also choose this nuke. On the left, the position was reliably covered by a metal beam. Through the eyepiece of the telescopic side, I saw his head. He twisted the bolt of the rifle, picked up the case, put it in his pocket, and looked out of his hiding place. My dear teacher from the sniper school said correctly, "Never think that your shot is the last one. Don't be curious in vain." Holding my breath, I gently pulled the trigger. From a height of 5 meters, the German fell to the bottom of the Kamyshlovsky ravine. His rifle fell behind him. To my surprise, he worked with the Mosin rifle, of course a trophy one. Fyodor, picking up the PPSH-41 submachine gun, remained in the trench to cover my way to the defeated enemy. In a quarter of an hour, whereby running, whereby crawling, I overcame the thickest of reeds and found myself near the corpse. I don't like to look at the faces of the dead enemies, and even more so than to remember them. The count went on 4 minutes. I quickly searched the Nazi, dressed in the camouflage coat over and jacket. Here is his soldier's book, here is the sign of the Iron Cross. With a knife sharp as a razor, I cut off these things. Throwing over my shoulder a rifle with a telescopic sight, now completely unnecessary for the fascist, I returned to my trench. Fyodor Sedikh was waiting for me impatiently. He helped me to roll over the parapet, back into the trench and asked, smiling, "Who did we hit this time?" "An important bird. Look what regalia he has." And I took a medal from my pocket. "Well, the most important thing," answered Fyodor. "He would not shoot in our sailors anymore. Just have a look, the silence around." So one went hunting, was confident in himself. I took out a German soldier's book and read it aloud. Helmut Bommel, 121st Infantry Regiment of the 50th Brandenburg Infantry Division, Oberfeldwebel. Sedikh took the boss rifles from me, mine and the trophy, and we quickly crawled along the trench to the front line of the 3rd Battalion of the 79th Brigade. The Germans woke up and started a fiery rain over the neutral zone. Our artillery answered them. Friday, 23rd January began quietly and peacefully, but still the war took its toll. Dear friends, that's all for today. Write your comments under this video and subscribe to the channel. It was Tim and the Eastern Front channel. I wish you health and peace. See you.